listen, you can read all the self-help books you want, you can watch all the level up content you want, and that's good. But once you step out of your house and you step into a world that was not meant for you to succeed, that self-help stuff is not really going to get you that far, because then it becomes about self-mastery. It's about strategy. Because if you don't understand how to play the game, especially as a woman, you're never going to win. You're just going to keep going in circles, because this world is not meant for us to succeed easily. It is not meant for women to come in and do the same things as men and get the same results. Okay, so you have to learn the self-mastery, which is basically every girly law that I talk about, and you have to learn the strategy, because it's a game. Okay, guys, that was my intro. Hey! I have some good news and some bad news. The good news. No. I'm going to do the bad news first. The bad news is that as a society, we are obsessed with labels. And not just labels, with dichotomies, false dichotomies. There's literally a label for everything, from the way our bodies look, to the way we do our makeup, to the way we dress, to our hobbies, blah, 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 blah. Like, as kids, we first have the dichotomy, are you a tomboy or are you a girly girl? And then as you get older and you become a teenager, it's so important to conform, because that's how our social survival is basically guaranteed. And so we fall within the categories of emo or jock or nerd or all those stupid made up categories. And then as adults, we kind of keep that need to conform within us, and it never really goes away. So we take on labels just in a different way. Like, we'll emulate celebrities, for example, like the Sabrina Carpenter hairstyle. Everybody has that hairstyle now, or like the Hailey Bieber nails. Not that these are bad things, these are pretty hairstyles, pretty nails, but that's how we become that's how we identify ourselves. And now there's so many labels, like clean girl or mob wife or Pilates princess or muscle mommy. I think I fall within that category, but there's all these butt crack labels for why? For why? Hey everyone, it's Editing Neeki here. I feel like we haven't seen each other in a while, but I am here to let you know that we have unlocked another word in my gibberish vocabulary, which is the word butt crack. So I've been using this word for years, and I use it as an adjective. I know it's normally a noun, but to me it's an adjective, and I basically describe something as butt crack if it's so ridiculous it seems like it's been pulled out of someone's ass. So yeah, anyway, carry on. But the shell that once kept you safe will eventually become your cage. And labels are very dangerous because they make you predictable, and people will make assumptions that will then reinforce that label, which is basically your cage. If we look at nature, for example, animals with the most mobility are the ones that are the most likely to survive and evolve. Not the biggest, clunkiest, scariest animal, but the ones that are able to swim or fly, or amphibians, the bisexual animals who can live on land and water. So y'all see where I'm getting at? That's where this law is going. Okay. And a lot of these labels, by the way, are tied to capitalism and the consumption behind looking the part. But every time we buy into that, every time we buy into a label, we lose a little bit of our individualism. Okay. Like I said, the Sabrina Carpenter hairstyle, for example, I see girls with that hairstyle all the time now. And it's a super pretty hairstyle, but like, I was at a restaurant a few weeks ago, and the waitress was this blonde woman, and she had the same Sabrina Carpenter style bangs and curls. And I just thought of her the whole time as the girl with the Sabrina Carpenter hair. Like, that was the label that I gave her. And it sucks because she's her own person and is not Sabrina Carpenter, but that's how I labeled her. And that's how a lot of us go around the world. And that's the risk that having these labels carries, or at least one of the risks, is that people are going to categorize us, and they're going to basically predict the way that we're going to act based on that label. And I struggle with this a lot too. I really do, because I look at other podcasters, I look at other creators, and I think like, oh, I need to copy this, or I need to do that. And then I'm like, wait, no. Like, sometimes I forget who the fuck I am. So That was the bad news. The bad news is that society has a hard on for labels and for dichotomies too. You're either one or the other. The good news is, I'm going to tell you the good news after the theme song. Before we get started, I wanted to plug the baddie brief. The whole purpose of the baddie brief is to give you a little bit of a reminder of the things that you probably listened to in previous episodes, but you've forgotten about. So the baddie brief is basically a way to just remind you of some action item, a patriarchy loophole, a mindset shift, whatever it is, like something that I think is really important that you should know and you should be reminded of. It will be in your inbox every other Friday for you to get that little reminder, okay? So I am gatekeeping it until I get to 100 signups, which we're almost there. So I haven't forgotten about the girlies who have signed up. I see you. I appreciate that you've signed up. And I will be delivering it very soon. We just need to get to 100, okay? Because I want to maximize the amount of girly pops who are reading it. Okay, anyway, I told you guys that I have good news for you. The good news is that all these butt crack labels are self-imposed, okay? Most people don't realize this, but they are self-imposed. And because most people choose a label and become that label and dress and act and carry themselves like that label, they assume that everybody else has one too. And that's what makes most people rigid and inflexible, because they assume a specific label and that's who they become. Because a lot of people cannot make their identities for themselves, unfortunately. That's why so many people feel stuck. They feel threatened, intimidated, envious, victim-minded, because they think that this is the God-given label that they have, the role that they have to play in this world, and that's it. But that's just not true. Let me give you an analogy, okay? I've talked about this on my Instagram, but I haven't brought it up yet here. We live in hell. The world we live in is a form of hell. As babies, as a little babe, you're born into this world with color. You are a colorful being. When you're a really young child, you have boundless ideas and ambitions and dreams and thoughts, and you're not tainted by the guilt and the shame and the cultural and social norms that are meant to tame you and bring you into hell. So think of yourself as coming into this world as colorful, and think of the world as gray. It's been painted with a gray brush. As you get older, you go to school, you become a teenager, you start getting painted with that gray brush because you've taught that, you need to settle down, that your dreams are too unrealistic, and you're taught to conform because that's a way of social survival. Especially when you're a teenager, you have to conform. You want to be like everybody else. And slowly but surely, we become gray. And then we become adults, and that grayness just becomes a default part of our lives and our personalities and our identities. And we basically just think that, okay, well, this is life. Life is miserable. This is how I'm going to have to live the rest of my life. And we're brainwashed into thinking that life means misery, life means suffering, life means being unhappy. But that's not true. And everything that I talk about, every single law that I make out there, every single thing that I tell you girlies to do, or any mindset shift that I tell you about, is a way to make yourself colorful. Because when you become colorful again and you reclaim that color, then you have this aura. You have this aura around you, and everything around you becomes colorful. And you've transcended hell, and you're now in your own beautiful, colorful, happy world. Because life does not mean suffering. Life does not mean self-imposed labels. Life means anything you want it to be. But most people don't realize that because they equate existence with suffering. So I really, really want us to get out of that mindset, because that is just so toxic and so stupid. And it's just like, I don't understand. And one of the ways that we can escape this mindset and become colorful again is by throwing away these stupid ass labels that we've been taught to adopt, and becoming our own person and really letting our true selves shine. But we have to reject these stupid labels first, and we have to understand that these are self-imposed. I like to think of myself as someone who cannot be defined because, like, on one hand, I'm like this pink Barbie doll girl, and then on the other, I compete in powerlifting and I lift weights and I do something that's really stereotypically manly. So, like, have fun trying to label me as anything. Enjoy that activity, okay? But listen, the woman no one can label is the woman no one can control. Okay, because you can't control what you can't define. That's why society is so obsessed with labels, because as soon as you're able to define something and put a name on it, you're able to control it, you're able to demonize it, you're able to spread misinformation or propaganda or hatred or anger about it. And all you needed to do was define it. And something really, really interesting that I learned very early on in my undergrad actually was that the universe wants equilibrium. So I learned this in economics and in politics because I did my undergrad in public policy. I did my master's in political science. But if you study anything, science, physical sciences, you will see a pull towards the center, towards equilibrium, okay? The center is the path of least resistance. But you need to think of the center as a black hole because that's exactly what the center is. It has this gravitational pull, just like a black hole, that pulls everything towards it if you get close enough. And let me get something straight. It's not just about being yourself. It's about being different versions of yourself. And when I was putting this law together, I actually drew from Law 48 and the 48 Laws of Power, which is assume formlessness. So it's not just about rejecting these labels and being your own person. It's defying these labels and not being a person who can even be labeled in the first place. So you're going to be like a shapeshifter. That is one of the keys to power. Okay, I need to take a moment because I keep getting distracted by my lethal face card today. Oh my God. The example I want to talk about today is Lady Gaga. And I had so much fun putting this example together because I learned a lot. And I hope you guys will learn a lot too. So Lady Gaga is somebody who has been around for like over 15 years now. She's had a really long career and it's still going. Like she's still like at her peak. And there's a very interesting reason behind this. So Lady Gaga came into the scene around 2008, and that era, we can call it the fame era because that's what the name of her first album was. She had a very pop star vibe with like platinum blonde hair, but it was also kind of a twist on that pop star vibe because it was still kind of like a weird, robotic, like disco vibe. And even though she was, you know, like this blonde pop star, she was not like sexualized. And then around like 2010, that's when she entered her monster era. So she recreated her image. And now she had this like gothic theatrical vibe. She created these like spectacles wherever she would go, like the meat dress that she wore to the VMAs. She literally wore a dress of raw meat. And a lot of her work and her looks had these undertones of religion and politics to it. So kind of different from that pop star, disco pop star that we saw initially. And then in around like 2011 to 2013, that was her art pop era. At this point, like she completely shattered any expectations that people had on that predictable trajectory that a pop star would normally take. Because at that point, she was trying to show that art and pop can be basically the same thing. And her looks, her performances, her music, it was very chaotic, very messy. She wore these like crazy wigs, these crazy outfits with this like insane makeup. So fun fact, when I was putting together this example, I watched a lot of her performances. And one of the performances I watched was her 2013 VMA performance of her song Applause. And a fact about me is that when I do cardio at the gym, when I'm on the treadmill, I watch music videos and live performances because watching people dance makes me move faster. And this performance was so fucking good that I had to add that performance to my cardio playlist. And now I watch it almost every single day. So yeah, take a look at that. It is crazy. It's so freaking good. Anyway, the last era I'm going to go through, because she has so many eras, we can talk about this for the whole episode, but the last one I want to talk about is her jazz era that happened in the mid 2010s. And in this phase, she had this very elegant, old-timey, old Hollywood vibe. She kind of seemed normal for a second, like she looked pretty normal. And that's when she established herself as a vocalist. And people are like, this girl can sing, not just perform and do these artsy, weird things. And since then, we just got to the 2015s, but since then, she's had literally a reinvention every couple of years. Like, that's why I can't go through all of this, because we're going to be here forever. And she's always controlled the way that she's been defined, because as soon as she started to become predictable, she rebranded. And my theory is that she didn't ever become over sexualized because she's always so weird and theatrical and artsy, because she will come out and perform in like basically underwear, like she did in the 2013 VMA performance that I watch every single day, but it didn't have that same like sexual connotation to it that a lot of other performances might what the hell was that a lot of other performances might have. That's the thing. People like spectacles and unpredictability because we live in hell. We live in this gray world. When we see people with color, especially people we're detached from, like celebrities, we want to watch them. Like it's a breath of fresh air. We like to see that. And when I'm saying people who we're detached from, because a lot of the time, because people are so miserable, if somebody close to you ends up being colorful, a lot of people's reaction to that is envy. But we're not going to talk about that right now. Anyway. And like, honestly, how would you even describe Lady Gaga in one word? Like, the words that come to mind for me are artistic and eccentric. But like, literally, what do those even mean? They can mean a million different things. And she did that on purpose. And if you were to have a Lady Gaga costume party, I'm sure that every single person would show up wearing something different. And that is the sign of somebody who's been successfully able to avoid labels, be a shapeshifter, be elusive, and create her identity on her own terms. And that's why she's still relevant, because she's always giving us a spectacle. She's always rebranding. She's always giving us something to be on the edge of our seats, something to anticipate. And 15 plus years later, she's still super successful and super relevant. And there are a few other celebrities who I wanted to use for this example, like Doja Cat or Ariana Grande, for example. Like, we all know her Blackiana era, and now she's, what is she now? Ozempic Ariana, but like, she's gone through a lot of transformations too. But somebody like Sabrina Carpenter, I'm sorry, I'm not picking on her, it's just she's a really good example and a timely example. She's actually somebody who is, I would say, at risk, because if she continues with this like cute blonde bombshell who has this kind of like nostalgic vibe to her, like, that's really cute, that's unique, and that's something fun that people are eating up right now. But in a year or two, it's gonna get tired and old. So if she doesn't rebrand, she risks becoming irrelevant. But like, what do I know? Okay, I'm just saying, I like her, I'm not picking on her. Have you ever tried this one? I want to talk about things that the girly pops can do to implement this law. And I've structured this episode, or this section, I should say, a little bit differently. So this is a new structure I'm working with. Let me know if you like it. But basically, I want to walk through 3 things: mindset, action, challenge. Mac. All right. So number 1 is mindset. And your mindset is where this whole law starts. Something that a lot of people say, and you might have even thought of this while you're listening to this episode, is, I just want to be myself. Sweetie pie, have you seen the world we live in? Like, have you stepped outside? Okay? Have you stepped outside? We need to forget this fantasy that if we just act authentically and wear our hearts on our sleeves, that everything will be okay. That is not true. By all means, be yourself with your close friends, your family, your partner. But if you want to be yourself and be brutally honest all the time, and really, are you ready to give people that much access to these different parts of yourself? Seriously, consider that. Be yourself, quote unquote, is a moral principle that wants to exploit your honesty and your vulnerability. Okay? Men caught onto this a long time ago. For example, think of a guy who's trying to get into your pants by not being himself. Okay? He's leeching on you being yourself so that he can mimic that, so he can tell you everything that you want to hear, so that he can ask you, oh, what are you looking for in a man? You say ABC, and then he acts like he's ABC so that you can bring your guard down, you can trust him, and then you can pull your pants down so he can get access to you. Men are clever. They've caught on to this, okay? And keeping women honest and making them act like themselves is a way to make them controllable and a way to make us feel guilty when we're not acting like ourselves, because then we're told that we are lying and we are dishonest, and that is wrong. Again, being judged by this butt crack morality that is meant to control us, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with wearing a mask and having a different version of yourself in front of your boss versus your coworker versus a person you just started dating. Listen, I am a winner and a spoiled brat, and I'm most myself when I win and I get my way. Another thing that we need to get out of our minds is, oh, I don't want to play games. I hate to break it to you, but you've been playing the game all your life. Everything is a game. When you are in a job interview, that's a game. When you're working in a workplace, that's a game. When you're dating somebody new, that's a game. These are all games. These are all power dynamics that you have to master, right? That's where the self-mastery comes in, so that you don't fall for these stupid traps of, oh, just be yourself. Systems like capitalism and patriarchy, they don't ask for your consent, okay? You're in the game whether you want to be or not. And there's no better way to guarantee that you're going to lose than by fooling yourself that you've opted out and that you don't want to play games. That is delusion, and that's not the good type of delusion. That's not delulu, that's just delusion. Picture it like this. Life is a game of Monopoly. If you don't play, your piece is going to sit there while people who are also playing are just going to move around you. They're going to buy properties, they're going to collect income tax, and eventually the square on the board that you're sitting on is going to be bought by somebody else. And now you're going to have to pay income tax to that person, but because you weren't playing, you don't even have any money. So cut it out. You're in the game. You might as well play. If you don't play, you're going to lose. Okay? And it's not, you cannot opt out of this. It's not like when you was like, it's not like when you visit a website and they ask you if you want to accept or decline the cookies. The cookie is being shoved in your face. What you need to do is say, you know what, I want chocolate chips, I want sprinkles, I want icing on this cookie, and make that cookie on your own terms. And the thing is, you should want to play games because this is your life, okay? Playing the game means using strategies to give yourself the best life possible. So saying these stupid things like, oh, I don't want to play games, oh, I just want to be myself, blah, 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 blah. That's a lazy way out. That is what most people want to hear because it doesn't require any effort. You don't have to do anything differently. But in the long run, it's the worst thing you can do for yourself because you are going to fucking lose. And listen, being true to yourself is something you should always do internally. You should always, have a very good sense of who you are, what you stand for, what your dreams are, what your goals are, what your purpose is, all of that stuff. But being yourself first and foremost is something you need to do internally. And you do that by having your best interests at heart. And one of the ways you do that is by playing the game correctly. Okay. So that was mindset. That's big. Lots of information here. See, this is why y'all need to subscribe to the Baddie Brief, because I'm probably going to have a Baddie Brief newsletter at some point in a few months talking about this exact point. Now, moving on to action. So let me tell you how to actually use this law in an actionable way. Number one is you need to understand yourself. And you might be thinking, okay, like what? Obviously I understand myself. Do you? Do you? Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. You know, there's this TikTok audio that was like going around maybe a year ago of like this argument, and they're like, let me tell you something. And that just plays in my head every single time I tell you guys, let me tell you something.
Let me tell you something. All right. Let me tell you something. Wait.
So let me tell you something. Your personality is the mask you wear, and your character is who you are. Okay, I didn't make this up. This is like a very well-known saying. Now, I believe that as individuals, we have a unique character. Our values, our outlooks on life, our likes and dislikes, our hopes and dreams, all those things are what make up our unique character. But that's the basis. So think of your character as a naked body. Okay, it's just your state of being. Now, we have to interpret our character and give it a form. So we put on an outfit. Your personality, think of that as your outfit. So your character is your default form of being. Your personality is the outfit that you put on that day to interpret some part of that character. And you can't master this law. You can't have different forms and shapeshift if you don't truly understand and love your character, your default form of being. And that's something that a lot of people struggle with because a lot of people just don't like themselves. Now, number 2 is to treat life as a performance. Start seeing the world as a stage, like Shakespeare said, and position yourself as the actress and the producer and the director and the script writer and the casting director and everything else. Like Margot Robbie, who we discussed in the previous law, she became the producer and the actress so that she can determine what kind of movies she plays in because she was the one producing them. The thing is, a lot of people, because we live in hell and we live in this gray world, a lot of people think that they're just the actors. If they even see the world as a stage to begin with, they just think that they are the actors and they have no control over the story, over the plot, over anything. They think they have no control. And that's why so many people are victims, because at the core is this sense of helplessness. But at the same time, that helplessness is underlined by a lack of accountability. Because if you're a victim, you just think that the world is this way and I can't do anything to change it. And by being a victim, you've completely relinquished control over your story. So you need to understand that you have complete control over the performance that is your life. And you're not just an actress, you're also the director, the producer, the screenwriter, the scriptwriter, everybody, the costume designer, all of that. So you need to role play. You need to role play and remove the negative connotation from role playing. A lot of us are brainwashed to think that it's fake. It's being fake. But that's another false dichotomy. You're either role playing or you're being your authentic self. Being your authentic self or pretending to is also a role that you can play. That's what a lot of politicians do. They try to pretend like they're like everybody else. They're wearing this mask of authenticity and relatability when in reality it's a very carefully curated personality that they are projecting with a very clearly defined objective, which is to get people's support. Okay, so remove that negative connotation and that stupid, dumbass dichotomy that you're either fake or you're authentic. That's not true. And that's another aspect of this made up morality that we're taught to believe and think that that we're wrong or we're doing something wrong for role playing. Not true. Not true. It's not true, you guys. I promise. Now, part of this step of treating your life as a performance is understanding which role you need to play in different settings. It's kind of like when you use a specific sense of humor with friend group A, but you wouldn't use that with friend group B, for example. I remember one time my brother was saying he wanted to have a birthday party, but he wanted to invite different friend groups. And he said, I have a different personality with all my friend groups, and I don't know how I'm going to act if they're all together. So we're already role playing. We're already doing this. So be conscious about it. Be deliberate and intentional. Identify the mask that you need to wear. For example, at work with your boss, you might even wear different masks in the same setting. So with your boss, you wear one mask, you play one role. With your coworker, you play another role. With somebody who reports to you, you play another role. So be very intentional with the roles that you're playing and have a goal in mind as well. A lot of us, we go around the world and we go around life without an end goal. And that's why we end up blundering and wasting time and feeling unfulfilled. It's because you're not working backwards from a goal. So a lot of the time, your role should be informed by the goal you're trying to achieve. So for example, if you're trying to get a promotion at work, work backwards from that and figure out how you need to act and how you need to role play to convince your boss that you deserve that promotion. All right, number 3 is to contradict yourself. So a little bit of psychology here. Our brains are trained for pattern recognition. So we're literally always looking for patterns and ways to categorize things. And we're also looking for coherence in people, especially Men, when they look at women, they're trying to categorize us. So one of the easiest ways to live rent-free in people's minds is to be a little contradictory and keep some interactions unfinished. There's this phenomenon called and I'm going to mispronounce this, Zeigarnik effect. Sounds like a made-up word, but it's not. It's after the psychologist who discovered it, who is actually a woman. And basically, this concept discovered that we remember unfinished interactions or unresolved impressions more vividly than completed ones. So if you've ever been interrupted in a conversation, for example, and you like think about that exact topic you were talking about right before you're interrupted for days after, that's this Zeigarnik effect. So when you contradict your labels and you don't over explain, you just kind of, you're one version of yourself and then you're another version of yourself, and you reject these butt crack labels, you remain psychologically open in people's minds, aka you're living rent free. And like, look at me for an example. I have a bunch of contradictory labels. I compete in one of the most stereotypically masculine sports, which is powerlifting. I literally lift weights for sport. I literally compete with a full face of makeup on, and I got a pink singlet and a pink shirt and like a whole pink ensemble for my next competition. So that is kind of contradictory, but that's how I live rent free in people's minds. And always the commentators are always making some kind of comment about something that I'm wearing, or like the socks that I have on, or something like that. And so you literally can be multiple things that are seemingly contradictory, and you will get bonus points for that. Just like how I always say you don't get extra points for suffering, you will get extra points for being contradictory. All right, number 4, and this is the last one. Have fun and be silly. We're in the system. We're in this godforsaken world, whether you like it or not. And we're also fortunate enough not to be dudes. So have fun with it. Have fun. Reject this hell gray world that we live in and be colorful. Reclaim your color. And listen, let me tell you something. As women, we are judged on 1,000 different things, which gives us 1,000 different ways to control the narrative. So switch up your aesthetic. Don't conform to this like one Sabrina Carpenter aesthetic or Hailey Bieber aesthetic or Buckrackerson aesthetic. Like, you can like be as many versions of yourself that you want to be. It might help to like maybe make a Pinterest board of different styles that you like. And if you do this right, your Pinterest board will look kind of chaotic, but that's good because you don't want to conform to one type of style or label. Because remember, like I said, a woman no one can label is a woman no one can control, because you can't control what you can't define. All right, I might be onto something with this one. Just saying. So we went through the mindset, we went through the action. Now let's talk about the challenge. My challenge for you is that every day this week, identify a label that you have placed on yourself. For example, maybe tomorrow when you get dressed in the morning, you realize like, oh, I'm actually like putting together this outfit to fit an aesthetic that I saw on Buckrackerson. Or maybe after you come out of a meeting, you're like, oh, I role played really well in that meeting and pretended to be a subject matter expert for this client, and I did a really good job at wearing that mask. So take inventory of a label or of a role that you've assumed, and this will help you. This is an exercise in helping you become more conscious of this so that you're actually able to take control of it. And another thing that you can do is to take inventory of the roles that you're playing with different people. So you can choose one interaction every day. For example, an interaction with a coworker, an interaction with your friend, an interaction with your mom, and ask yourself, first of all, what role are you playing? How do you want them to perceive you? What is your goal in this interaction? Maybe that's not something that's going to be applicable, for example, with your friend or your mom, but with your boss, it might be different. Also ask yourself if you're doing this because it's expected of you and you've taken this role because that's what society and culture told you should do, or are you doing it because you want to and you might be working backwards from a goal? And my other challenge to you is like, maybe share these with me. Like, I kind of want to know. I'm kind of curious. So let me know how this is going for you, because I'm like so curious. I would love to hear this. So please drop me a comment or a DM. I want to hear about the discoveries that you guys are making while you're taking inventory of your roles and labels. Let us be grateful. Okay, I don't know why I did that. I wanted to say let us discuss reversals. So, to be honest, not too many reversals for this law. What I will say though is don't just rebel for its own sake. There are people who take pride in being the black sheep. These are people who have decided to rebel for its own sake, and doing this will marginalize you, okay? Because we live basically in a herd. As social animals, we live in a herd. So people who marginalize themselves, they do themselves a really, really big disservice because now you look like a weirdo. So don't try to just be the black sheep. I am the pink sheep, and the pink sheep is still part of the herd because she's cute and she's different and people want to be around her and they want to be her friend. But the black sheep is kind of a weirdo. Nobody wants to be around the black sheep. So don't be the black sheep, and don't be around people who take pride and almost like fetishize being the black sheep, because those are victims of the world and they're going to drag you down. Now, another thing I'm going to say is that in friendships and close relationships, in relationships with, for example, your family or your partner, the dynamic is different, okay? You're not playing a game with your best friend or with your husband, for example, or with your mom. So that dynamic is going to be different from the dynamic that you have with your boss or with somebody you're negotiating with or somebody you just started dating. So this is not a law that works with every single interaction, but it's something that we should be aware of because we are still role playing in every single interaction with every single different person in our lives. It just might not be as strict and goal oriented. So I am going to end this episode here. So feel free to subscribe to the Baddie Brief if you want to get little reminders of some of the important things that I have discussed with the class. And also share with me your challenges, okay? Maybe in the future I'll do like some kind of giveaway or something, but for now, let's see how it goes. Just share them with me. I'm not gonna like blast them and tell everybody, hey everyone, look at what she did. Like, I just want to know. I like hearing how you are using these laws in your lives. Like, somebody messaged me the other day saying that at work, she talked about something that she accomplished and she was really proud of, and she got a lot of praise for it. And it was all because she decided to use Girly Law of Power number 1, which is don't be humble. So, I love hearing your success stories. I do. So, let me know. Anyway, in the meantime, don't forget that you are the baddest bitch in any building that you step foot in. And until next time, stay mad. Love you. Bye.